Hi everyone, Rubber Mold Man here. This video I'm going to show a couple of my molds being taken apart to get the statue out. I call it demolding, but that's apparently not actually a word. But I've had quite a few people ask exactly what it's like taking the statue out of the molds. If you've never done it before, I think you'll be surprised at just how simple it is and how nice they come out. I've actually even had a couple people contact me that they just don't believe my molds make the statues that I show in my pictures on my website and on my auctions and such. So in a way this is to prove that yes, my molds actually make those statues. Of course they don't come out all painted and finished up like I make them at the end, but you'll see the nice detail in that in the unpainted. Now I've got two different styles of molds here. Now of course I want to make it clear I normally don't do this outdoors. I do it in my workshops, but the lighting in there was not very good for a video, so I just brought these out to a little work table for this video. But otherwise you want to keep them out of the sunlight because, as I've mentioned before, UV rays can over time hurt the rubber of the mold. So I'm just going to take these apart, then the molds are going right back in. Anyway, I've got two different types of molds. I've got a simple mold here that has no seam in the rubber, and then I've got one here that has a seam all the way on the back, so you'll see how both work. Now of course this is how they're cast, so when they're in the shop and the liquid cement mixture goes in them, they sit upside down because it goes in from the bottom. So when it's time to take them apart, of course you just have to flip them over. Now as you can see, I use clamps on my molds to keep them together. You can use bolts, they're drilled for bolts. The clamps, as many molds as I do, they go a lot quicker with the clamps generally. So I have a big bucket of clamps I always keep around. And then the other tool I use is just a basic slotted screwdriver, which can help get the fiberglass off, which a lot of times, as you can see there, no problem whatsoever. Okay, the reason I picked this particular mold to show you, it has no seam in it. As you can see, it's just a one-piece rubber all the way around. But this is one where the head, if you can see, the neck gets smaller and then the head gets bigger. And I've had people ask on the items like that, how can that happen without a seam? Normally you need a seam to come up and open up the rubber so you can get the big head out with the small neck there. I make my molds so that in cases like this, generally the rubber will stretch around and you won't have to have the seam. So I'm going to show you here. I start in the back and the rubber just peels up. Just comes right off. You can already see the nice detail of the turtle there. Now for the head, what I do to stretch it around, because you don't want to just pull the rubber because that could end up breaking the head off. I put my thumbs on the top of the head and just start rolling the rubber up like that. You just kind of roll it up and it'll stretch over, and you just bring it up and over and voila. There is your cute little turtle statue, nice and detailed. That just needs to sit outside for a few days to cure the rest of the way, and at that point you can sell it as is, or you can paint it up and get probably double the price on it. Now as is, I get $15 to $20 for something like that. It probably costs less than 75 cents in total material to make it. So that's a huge profit margin on that guy. So we'll just move him over here. Now we're going to do the big guy here. So again, we got to flip it over. Alright. Remove all the clamps. Now sometimes on molds with seams in them, I will use a bolt or two along the seam just to make sure the seam area stays lined up and is nice and tight. But this guy has such a nice uniform seam, I just use the clamps. Now this is the first time I've ever used this mold. This is its inaugural use. I've not made a pelican out of this particular mold. I mean, I've made this mold over and over, but this particular one, this is its first use. So we're going to see how it works the first time. Now, a lot of times, the first time they're used, they're a little, they kind of get it like a vacuum seal here, so that's why I have the screwdriver. You can see this one's a little tighter. Usually after they're used once or twice, they loosen up and they're easy to take apart. But again, you just kind of easily and gently pry the fiberglass. You just don't want to put too much pressure, especially on the head there. So I'm just going to kind of loosen it a little here and there until it comes off. And there we go. Alright, now before I take the rubber off of this guy, I just want to say something. You can see here in this mold how you got the bulk of the body here of the pelican and then a head that comes up. The head's considerably thinner in the neck. On molds like this, it isn't a bad idea to put a little bit of wire reinforcing inside the mold when you go to cast it. That way it provides extra strength to the neck, because inevitably somebody's going to grab the statue by the neck to try to carry it. Concrete's strong, don't get me wrong, but a little bit of extra wire or some sort of reinforcing in there will help strengthen it. Plus, let's say somebody knocks it over and cracks the neck, it'll still stay together and you could repair it then instead of the head just falling off. In the case of this one, all I used was a old-fashioned metal coat hanger. I just bent it down into a long shape and put it inside the mold while it was still empty, and then as I filled it with cement, I just prodded the coat hanger a couple times to make sure it was all, because you don't want the coat hanger to stick out the top, of course, and then filled it up the rest of the way, and that's it. So here we go. I'll turn this to the camera here so you can see. Now, of course, this has a seam, so it's going to leave a line all the way up the back here, but that's fine. I have videos on how you get rid of those lines. So we just separate that. And again, this is a brand new mold, first time being used, so it's going to be a little stickier on the edges there where the seam is, because it's its first time. Usually it takes 2 or 3 turns to get that going. Alright. And the discoloration there on the concrete is just the residue from the mold. It takes 1 or 2 times for that to dissipate and come off. It has nothing to do with the concrete. Now for the head here, we just kind of lift it up over the edge of the head. I'm going to turn it so you can see. And we're just going to peel the rubber on down and get it off the rest of the way. And there you go, pelican statue. And now what I do, whenever anything has a seam, now you see here it leaves a bit of flash, which is completely normal. I've got people that have purchased molds and then they contact me and then they're upset. They're like, I took the mold apart and there's this stuff here. If there's a seam, you're going to get some of this left over. That's normal. You have to take care of it. I have another video that shows how to clean up seams and that. But when you first take the piece out, I go right then with the same screwdriver and just knock some of that off. And it should easily kind of grind down. You just go along where the excess is sticking up. And just go ahead and get rid of it now for the most part. And that'll make it a lot easier when the time comes to do the filling. And there you go. You got a pelican. Now, it's normal for them to have a few little pit holes here and there. Again, that video about filling will take care of that. But you see how that's the standard statue. Again, this one has the little blotches. That's actually wax that I use on the inside when I make the molds. And the first use of the mold, it sometimes finishes coming off on the concrete. But otherwise, once they're used for a while, usually 2 or 3 times, that all comes off and you just get the straight gray. And that is how they come apart. Very easy, very little work needed to do that. And that's pretty much how all my molds work, whether they have a seam or they don't. They all primarily work the same way. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it clarified a few things. Please check my description below this video to check out the website that I have where you can purchase my molds directly from me. And I'll also mention in the description where the 2 eBay consignment sellers are that sell my molds as well. So you have 3 options to purchase molds, either directly through me or a couple eBay consignment sellers. These molds I sell all the time. In fact, this pelican sells, when it's all painted up, this pelican will sell for $60 to $70 here where I have my shop at. And when you consider that's probably time and labor, less than $5 total. Time, labor, and material to make one of these all painted up. So that is a huge profit margin. So that's what I've said in my videos before. Your number one thing you need to get are the molds themselves. That'll be your highest cost. Other than that, it's very low cost to get into this, whether it's as a small scale, as a hobby, or as a full-time business to make a good profit doing this. So please subscribe and keep on tap for my future videos, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.